When Amelia's husband abandons her and their unborn son, she promises her child that she'll always keep him safe and happy. A few years later, a tragedy makes her realize she made a promise she can't keep. Before we start, can we get this video to 1,000 likes? Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thomas barely looked at his wife as he packed the last of his clothes into a duffel bag. "I'm sorry, Amelia, but I can't be a father. I don't want to share you." She knew that she and her baby would be all right without Thomas. She would care for this child by herself. Amelia hugged her belly. "I promise I'll always be there for you." A few months later, Amelia gave birth to a beautiful, healthy boy named Nicholas. Although she had to work hard, Amelia always spent most of her free time with her son. However, there are some things that no parent can protect their children from, as Amelia discovered one day. Nick was 3 at the time. He and Amelia were in the yard, driving Nick's trucks through the dirt, when the little boy made an awful sound. "Nicky." Amelia reached for her son. His mouth was open, and it sounded like he was choking. She checked his mouth in case he'd swallowed a part from one of his toys when she wasn't looking but saw nothing. She called the paramedics, and an ambulance rushed Nick to the hospital. Amelia paced the hallway outside the emergency ward. Amelia stared at the forms the doctor handed to her. "That's a lot of tests. His condition is serious, and we need to find out what's causing his respiratory issues." A doctor placed his hand on Amelia's shoulder and guided her away from the door. In desperation, she pulled her phone from her pocket and called somebody she hadn't spoken to in years. Amelia started speaking as soon as the call was answered, but quickly broke into sobs. "I didn't make out a word of that, honey," a woman said, "but it sounds like you're in a bad way." "What can I do to help you?" Amelia sniffed. "Who are you? Where's Thomas?" "Tom is upstairs. I'm his wife." "Mary? Who are you?" "His ex-wife and the mother of his child. Thomas has a child." Amelia hung up and stuffed the phone back in her pocket. Why had she thought Thomas would care that Nick was sick? Soon, the doctor emerged from Nick's room and invited Amelia inside. "Nick is stable for now, but I'm deeply concerned by the severity of his breathing difficulties," the doctor said. "Until we can get to the root of what's causing it, we need to put him on life support." The doctor had a gentle face and kind eyes. He genuinely cared about Nick, and Amelia felt she could trust him. As a doctor, there are times when your patients creep into your heart. He stroked Nick's hair off his forehead. Who wouldn't be touched by this young man's determination? Or his mom's courage and strength? Amelia ducked her head as she felt herself blush. "I promised him I'd always be there for him, and that I'd do everything I could to give him a safe and happy life." Amelia sighed and looked at her sleeping child. "If only I'd been able to keep that promise." "Don't blame yourself." Gavin came around and gently squeezed her arm. "You're a great mom, Amelia, but some things in life are beyond our power and control. You have done everything you can, and that means you kept your promise." All of Amelia's guilt over the past few days overwhelmed her then. She burst into tears and sobbed until her throat felt raw and tight. Gavin put his arm around her shoulders and quietly supported Amelia until her tears ran dry. The next day, Amelia felt more positive about Nick's situation. A weight had been lifted from her shoulders when Gavin helped her realize she hadn't broken her promise, and the results from Nick's latest series of tests were due today. "I'm very sorry, Amelia," Gavin said. "The test results came in this morning, and they aren't good. Nick isn't responding to the medication." Amelia couldn't believe what she was hearing. "I wish I did, but there's nothing more we can do for him at this point. I hate to say this, but you must make a tough decision. Nick can't stay on life support indefinitely." "If there was anything else we could try, I would do it," Gavin said, "but we've exhausted all our options." Amelia walked away to sit at Nick's side. Amelia felt a slight pressure on her hand and looked up. Nick was watching her with his big dark eyes. "Hey buddy," Amelia said. "Do you want to hear a song?" Nick squeezed her hand again, so Amelia sang to him. She read him his favorite story, and then sang to him some more. Her throat was sore and scratchy by the time Nick fell asleep again, but Amelia was determined to make him as happy as possible for his last few hours. Eventually, she heard the door open, and a gentle hand landed on her shoulder. Amelia nodded. She held Nick's hand as Gavin and the nurses began taking him off the life support machines. When they started to remove the tube feeding him oxygen, Amelia couldn't handle it anymore. She ran from the room in tears and fell to her knees in the hallway. Her beautiful son, who she'd fought so hard for, was about to leave her life forever. How could it have come to this point? Then Amelia heard something that made her jolt upright. Although it had been weeks, she instantly recognized Nick's voice as he sang his favorite song. Amelia scrambled back into Nick's room. Her son lay in his bed, free of all the tubes and machines Amelia had grown accustomed to, and he was singing. It wasn't a trick of her imagination. Gavin looked as shocked as Amelia felt. "He's breathing on his own," Gavin said. Nick slowly improved after that day. He transferred to a rehabilitation center, and eventually, Amelia could take him home. As she watched Nick fall asleep, Amelia couldn't help but think of the kind doctor who worked so hard to save her son. Amelia returned to the hospital the next day and sought out Gavin. "Amelia?" Gavin approached her with a worried look. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, and it's all thanks to you." Amelia presented Gavin with a container she brought for him. "I made cookies to thank you for everything you did for Nick and me. You aren't only an amazing doctor, but an incredible person too." Gavin smiled shyly. "That's very kind of you, Amelia. It means a lot to me, and I'm glad to see you again. I hope this doesn't sound too strange, but I miss seeing you every day." An unexpected warmth bloomed in Amelia's chest. "I've missed seeing you too, Gavin." Gavin and Amelia exchanged numbers. They discovered they had many interests in common as they got to know each other better and eventually fell in love. Nick also grew to love Gavin and see him as his dad. He proudly carried the reins when Amelia and Gavin married a few years later. What can we learn from this story? Miracles can happen when we least expect them. Amelia had lost all hope that her son would recover, but she was blessed with a wondrous gift. Kindness will always bring people together. Gavin's genuine affection and caring attitude toward Nick and Amelia forged a bond between them that neither one could have anticipated.